The Blackwing Lair loot finally got data mined. For all you that don't know, in the PTR we had the unupdated version of it. When we cleared it, we just kept getting the old versions of items, which were absolute crap, and we thought, oh, they must have forgot about it. Yes, they basically just hid it from us. I will never run out of videos this week, aren't I? So let's take a look at it. One thing that we saw on the Solgorov loot is also happening here, where the healing gear will also give you a part of it in normal spell power, so healers are not completely defenseless. I think that's a good change. I would have liked that change to be a thing at the start of phase 1, and honestly, this might be a thing in Classic Plus. I am all for it, honestly. That's the TBC approach. Aside from that, most of these items are pretty crap, so let's take a look at the interesting ones. Bracers of Arcane Accuracy, 1% hit, 22 spell power. That's gonna be a really good bracers. 22 spell power on bracers. I think that's even better than tier 1 right there, so if you got an off piece, that's gonna be it. The healing set is also pretty nasty. These cloth pens got 77 spell power for healers and 1% crit, so pretty much every gosh dang healer in the game is gonna want that one. Now, this was always a very popular item in vanilla, and it will be again even more now. Angelista's Grasp is 2% hit only on the belt, which is always a piece that people swap out to the tier 1 to get their hit cap, so 2% for the hit. That's gonna be amazing. And it has 22 spell power, which is as good as Bantok Sash, if I am not mistaken, the one from BRD. So yes, Angelista's Grasp is basically gonna be an item that every caster is gonna want, especially Warlocks and Boomkins. They are gonna like it a lot. Shimmering Geda went from a terrible pair of boots to 64 healing power, so that's also gonna be really good. Ooh, look at these boots, 1% hit, 41 frost spell power. Is that even good? Let's take a look at tier 1. Yes, tier 1 only has 25, so that's gonna be pretty nasty. Alright, this item is still the same as vanilla. Basically, they only put 2 more spell power on it, and it's still freaking nasty as all hell. 2% crit, 37 spell power on the helmet. That's probably gonna be best in slot for mages. Fire mages with 2% crit on the helmet and a decent amount of spell power, that's gonna be nasty as all hell. Okay, let's take a look at the leather armor now. So this is gonna be the rogue and druid set for tanking. Now they are putting stamina, attack power and defense on it. Don't get me wrong, it's not terrible. Defense will turn into attack power for you, but compared to everything else, it looks really underwhelming. The shoulders are the same. Okay, the gloves are actually for casters. 1% crit, 28 spell power. There's definitely better ones in Molten Core for that. There is a shadow resistance chest in here, but as far as we could test on the PTR, we couldn't find any reason to get shadow resistance. The only reason I could see is the Black Trial, where Nefarian is there, because Nefarian will do shadow damage to you sometimes, but I do not think people are gonna stack shadow resistance at all, so maybe for a later boss in a later tier that's gonna work. Honestly, I cannot recall a single fight in vanilla that has shadow resistance. Illidan had it, but this is something else. Malfurion's Blessed Bulwark is just a big old stat stick with extra armor, so that's gonna be decent for druids. And Boots of the Shadow Flame are probably not gonna be very good. Like, the problem with leather classes, we're talking druids and we're talking rogues, is that with their gear, they keep going over the melee cap, the hit cap. I cannot go under the hit cap if I try, though, my bear guys. Ever since the incursion gear came out, every single patch I got more and more hit gear and nowhere to put it on because I'm already over the cap. It's really weird. Casters can never get enough and melees are like, oh my god, not more hit, please. Wow, take a look at this caster belt. 1% crit, 1% hit, 25 spell power. LAs are gonna eat good this tier, boy. Wow, everything is disgusting here. Look at this. 2% crit on the legs, 1% hit on the legs, and 26 spell power. Yeah, this is when the power creep is gonna really start sinking in, guys. I think Elemental is gonna be really nasty. There is even these really nice fire resistance legs that got 1% hit. I mean, as a warrior, I probably wanna get this one just so I can do Molten Core a little easier later. 35 fire res, really good stats, and 1% hit. That's nothing to sneeze at, man. For plate, there is even more holy spell power. I don't know why they keep putting Shockadin gear in the game. As far as I know, once again, I don't know, maybe I should call Telo. I should do another round table, honestly. But as far as I know, Red Paladins are not getting spell power anymore. That's not something they are looking for. So I don't know why they put so much holy spell power on gear. And if you look at that, the Helmet of Endless Rage, that's 2% crit. That's almost as good as Lionheart. Of course, Lionheart is 2% crit, 2% hit. But if you don't want to farm for it, because I am not gonna farm for it, that looks like a really good alternative. Alright, now the part that everybody wants to see. We're gonna talk about the weapons. There is a lot of cool weapons. There is a two-handed axe that comes to mind. There is a dagger that comes to mind. So yeah, let's take a look at those. First of all, we got Heart Striker, very slow bow. 43 DPS, so that's gonna be easily the best bow in the game. Actually, just as I said that I look at the item below. 1% chance on Wind Fury for it, I mean that's really cool. but this one has even more DPS and it is even slower. Huh. It's really close. I don't know which one I would take if I were a hunter. I think if you're going survival, the Heart Striker is a little bit better, but that's really close. I was thinking the Solgorov bows were gonna be best in slot, but these are definitely gonna be a little bit better. Very well, the Claw Chromagos. They put 68 spell power on it. And this on-hit proc is a little weird. Your offensive spellcast increase the spell damage of a random school of magic by 50 for 10 seconds. Is that a debuff or a buff? Okay, I just spent a little time googling, but Domi Aura means that it goes to you, so it's gonna be a buff. So that's not gonna be as good as I thought, because if it were a debuff on the boss, you know, and it's a random school of magic, over time, like, they are bound to get hit by it, but what if you get like a, I don't know, a fire one and you're like a frost caster or you're a nature caster? It's a little clunky, but the spells are good, the stats are decent, so it's definitely gonna be good. I just do not understand like how's that gonna work. Then we got Dragon Fang Blade with a very respectable 55 DPS, 140 speed and one hand, so that's gonna be a decent off-hander for warriors and a pretty good dagger for rogues in general. Wow, look at this fist weapon, 1% crit, 280 speed, very slow, very good. That's gonna be an amazing main hander for warriors right there. Wow, I want this gun now, I want it so bad. So it's a little on the faster side, but still a decent gun for a hunter. But this is the item from TBC. Do you remember that engineering rocket from TBC that you could use to pull mobs? You charge it up and then you explode in front of yourself and like you do a bunch of damage to the mobs around you and they generate a high amount of threat. That's gonna be so useful for pulling trash and stuff. I cannot wait to see it. I kinda hope hunters do not like it. Sorry. Then we got Doom's Edge. It's still not very good. It got slower, so that's better for warriors, but it's still not a good weapon. Now the Edge of Chaos, look at these DPS numbers. It's faster, yes, but 62.92 DPS, that's absolutely freaking nasty. They didn't even change it, honestly. It's just the same weapon and it's still like really good. Of course, there is a lot of weapons with procs and there is weapons with better stats on them, honestly. But you could do a lot worse than that axe. Very well, now this is the tanking mace, 5442 damage per second, main handler. Very slow, that's a bad sign right there. 8 defense, 7 strength, 14 stamina. Now, here's the problem. They normalized Devastate, so your Devastate doesn't do weapon damage anymore. It's normalized to, if I am not mistaken, 2.4 speed, no matter what you do. That's what I recall anyway. And we are getting to the point with Flagellation and all the crit we are getting from gear that we are rage capped constantly. I got like, especially because the bosses hit so freaking hard, you know? So having a weapon this low means I am not gonna be able to drop nearly as many heroic strikes. And that means half my rage is gonna go to waste. And I think that's not a good tanking weapon. Ironically, it's gonna be like a passable, acceptable DPS weapon because it's still slow and the damage is good, but I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe for shamans, maybe something like that. Those paladins I think do like slower weapons for tanking, am I wrong? I don't know, I don't see it. Ooh, look at this sword! It got even better than before. So Maladat is one of the coolest swords in the game that you can get. Look at that Elven Dragon thingy that you can get here. And now this is a one-hander and it is usually the offhand. That's what it's intended for, with that 2.2 speed. But 2% hit and 3 sword skill. Remember that you can hit the cap of 8 because the rune is only gonna add up with item abilities. It will not add up with like another rune or with your racial. So this is gonna absolutely, depending on the main hander, okay? Maybe we cannot find a good main hander sword. But if we can find a main hander sword that is decent, this is gonna definitely be the best offhand in the game for warriors and even sword rogues. I think a sword rogue is also gonna like it a lot. You cannot go wrong with it. You can just sacrifice all your hit gear, take 2 of these and you're gonna be nasty as all hell. Oh, I just found the main hander right here. 58 DPS, which is not the best, but it's pretty good. 2.70 speed, so kinda slow, and it's a sword, so it can benefit from the sword skill. So yeah, you can go for those two and that's gonna be a good combo. We are probably gonna find a better main hander somewhere here. Let's take a look. The Elementium Reinforced Bulwark is gonna be exactly the same item as before. As you guys know, in vanilla they kinda forgot to put shields in AQ, so this shield right here was best in slot pretty much for the entirety of tier 3 too, so it's not until next, the very end of next, that you get a better shield. So yeah, you're gonna be using this one a lot, it's gonna be pretty good. The Red Dragon Scale Protector is gonna give you crit and spell power for healers now, so that's also really nice for shamans and paladins. Oh, they put 1% crit on focus staff, yeah. The spell power is a little low, but I think a Fire Mage is probably gonna like this one. I don't think it's gonna be best in slot though. I definitely seen better items in Solgorov. Wait, 2%, you can get 2% crit and 86 spell power from Shadow Flame and it's not even changed. Yeah, that's definitely not gonna be best in slot. Look at the difference. It's not even that rare, it's an 11% chance from Nefarian. Yeah, that's gonna be nasty if you can get it, that's gonna be best in slot. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it was best in slot even in AQ. How do you get better than this? Okay, now we got the two-handers here. Drake Talon Cleaver. That's not the axe I was thinking about, by the way. But 1% crit, 73 DPS. That's gonna be pretty respectable. Nowhere near best in slot, but it's out there. The Draconic Maul is yet another Feral DPS mace with 2% crit and 172 attack power. That's gonna be only a little worse than Sulfuras, I think, for cats. For bears, Sulfuras is a lot better. Oh, look at that. Okay, that's Ash Candy. 81 DPS, very comparable to Sulfuras in DPS numbers. It has no proc, of course, so it's worse, but Ash Candy is such an iconic sword. 360 speed is a little fast, but for paladins it's still amazing. This is usually, traditionally, a paladin sword right here. If you play retail at all, you're gonna see this on the transmog of every goddamn paladin ever. Warriors also like it a lot because it's a really big sword. But yes, it is essentially the same sword. It's a really good weapon, so if you can use it, you probably want it. The Untamed Blade, that was, I think, back in the day, the best in slot for red paladins too. I don't know how it's coded in Classic, actually. That might have been a private server thing now that I think about it. Do we know the proc chance? Okay, it's saying it has a proc chance of 6%. Yeah, that looks like a really nasty weapon for a paladin. Huh, it's a little complicated now. Is Ash Candy gonna be better than Untamed Blade? Probably will be. Probably will be. Pretty close though. I mean, you could make an argument that for two-handed Fury, the Untamed Blade is a little better. Just because of how hard your Bloodthirst is gonna hit with it every time it procs. That's gonna be pretty nasty. I don't know, I would have to see it. The Essence Gatherer, if I remember correctly, this one looked pretty cool. No, it didn't. This looks like a maraca. Okay, no. 26 healing power, so that's good for priests, basically. Now let's take a look here. That's a pretty crappy necklace. If I recall correctly, there is not a lot of good necklaces for healers in tier 1, so that's definitely gonna be a step up. Oh, there is even some class trinkets here. Okay, this one dropped on the PTR and it wasn't the changed one, so they did change it now. Increases the aura effect of Moonkin Aura, Tree of Life, and Leader of the Pack by 100%. Ooh, man. I am not happy about it. I am not happy about it. Because this is gonna make it mandatory for every druid to run it. Can you imagine not giving people free crit? Twice as much? Can you imagine not giving people free attack power? Twice as much? Oh, jeez. It's gonna be super busted, obviously, but I wouldn't be very happy about it if I were a druid. Arcane Infused Gem is gonna put an explosion on your multi-shots and your carps, so that's gonna be a little more damage. I do not think this is gonna be good. I would much rather be stacking agility or crit if I were a hunter. The Mind Quickening Gem is gonna give the mage a lot of haste. Now 33% haste. Where would it work? Correct me if I am wrong, but the Fireball and the Frostbolt are gonna go below the GCD if they get that fast, don't they? I don't know, maybe it's worth it to do like a Pyroblast spamming thingy. I do not see it. I do not see it. Ooh, look at this one. Scroll of Binding Light. 25% attack speed and 33% casting speed. That's gonna be really good. Paladins love attack speed buffs. Now they completely changed the priest one. Heal your target for 10% of their health and increases their maximum health by 10%. So that's basically like a second last stand. I don't think that's gonna be worth it at all. The cooldown is too long. Like if it were at 1 minute cooldown even, I would see people use it a lot, but unless you know the tank is gonna take like one shot worthy damage for a very short period of time, I don't know, it's like too situational. I'm sure a priest would rather have more crit or more mana per 5 or more spell power than that. It's definitely not gonna show up in the numbers, it's definitely not number-wise worth it, so it's only for the 10% extra HP that you would like it, and it's not even that good. So Venomous Totem is gonna give the procs on the poisons of the rogues 30% more chance. They just nerf poisons to the ground, so I don't know if that's gonna be very good. I never play rogue, but I do know they nerf poison to the ground, so probably a little too late for that one, buddy. Shamans are getting one for 20% spell damage, but at the increased mana cost. I mean, Shamans do not have mana problems. As far as I know, Shamans are very good on mana lately, so that's gonna be really good, especially for the parsing people, the people that wanna parse. I think we're gonna see a lot of Elemental Shamans at the top 10 with that thing. Then Warlocks, they are gonna get double pet damage. Now, depending on the build, a pet can be from 10% to 20% of your damage, and doubling the pet damage will mean it's 40% of your damage for 30 seconds on a 3-minute cooldown. Look at the cooldown. So that's an uptime of 16%. So if we assume we're doing 20% damage, because our pet is like pumping like a madman, depending on our build once again, in the best case scenario, we're looking at a 3.2% increase in damage. So that's definitely gonna be a no-no. Especially because Warlocks usually take hit trinkets, they need hit a lot, and trinkets are usually a very good item to get that, so I do not think Warlocks are gonna like this one at all. Maybe Tank Warlocks? I am not up to date on how the Tank Warlock works at all. Then you got the Life-Giving Gem, a very iconic item. Swifty loved this item, he would use it on every single duel, and that's 15% extra HP as a heal and increases your maximum HP by 15%. So that's a second last 10, that's a little stronger even. It's gonna be a decent item to have in some fights, sure, especially because threat is becoming less and less of an issue as we go. They keep buffing threat for tanks and they keep nerfing the threat of DPSers, which I do not agree with, by the way. I think it's a bad change, but we could get to a point where mitigation is the meta, and that could lead to this trinket being good. Then the Drake Fang Talisman, it got reworked. They put 13 fire resistance on it, so that's gonna be definitely very useful in Molten Core because they put 2% hit on it and 56 attack power. That's definitely something that a lot of DPSers in Hit 3 are gonna use. As you can see, BWL loot is gonna make Hit 3 Molten Core a lot easier, which, I mean, that's not a surprise to anybody, of course, duh. But still, I like that they are putting fire resistance on everything. Keep in mind, there is quite a decent amount of fire damage in BWL. You still could use fire resistance even if you don't want to actually look for it. You still benefit from it, so that's pretty cool. Then you got Neltarion's Tear with 2% hit and 44 spell power. That's gonna be probably one of the best trinkets in the game right there. Neltarion's Tear was best in slot in AQ2 for a lot of classes. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. 2% hit, a lot of spell power. Hell, if this was like a pants, if this was like a breastplate, it would still be a really good item. So that's a tiny trinket with all those stats. And finally we got the Scarab, one of the most misunderstood items in the game. 5% block chance, 24 block value, and increased defense. Ironically, this item starts very crap and it gets better as time goes on, especially once you get to AQ levels of gear, because there is a thing called the avoidance cap. You might have heard about defense cap, that if you got 440, 430 defense, whatever, nobody gets it, you become immune to crits, the boss cannot crit you anymore. But one thing that we do not talk about a lot is that you can get avoidance cap. That means that if your chance to block, parry and dodge is more than 102%, your hits are only gonna be a parry, a dodge or a block. Now if every hit is a parry, a dodge or a block, that means you cannot get crit and you cannot get crushed. Both of them get pushed off the table. So you effectively become defense capped, and it's even better because crushing blows also do not happen. Now, given that they made Shamans crit immune, that's not gonna be a thing for them, and warriors are always avoidance cap because they got shield block. However, this item has a lot of potential as a paladin item. Paladins got Redoubt, which is almost 100% uptime, and it's like a constant chance to block. They got Holy Shield, which is another chance to block up there, and they are still not crit immune, so if they can get avoidance cap, and they might by the time we hit AQ, that's gonna make them a lot tankier. As a matter of fact, they are gonna be probably the tankiest AoE tank in the game, and that's pretty cool. So yes, it is a very niche item. I don't think a lot of tanks are gonna like it, but it will become really interesting in a tier or two from now, so keep an eye on it. Wow, that was a long one. Yeah, there is a lot of items, and we haven't even talked about the classes. That's gonna be tomorrow. Subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching.